And just like that, it's over. Season 3 is a wrap for the Wheel of Time, and one of the big questions this season is whether or not Amazon Prime and Sony could stick the landing with the final episode, with a mixed response to whether Season 1 or Season 2 actually hit the mark. In today's video, we're going to review He Who Comes with the Dawn, the finale to Season 3. I'll let you know what I loved, what I didn't love, and then I'll give the episode final score. So let's dive in. Before we dive into the video, make sure to give the video a like if you like this type of content, and consider subscribing to the channel as it helps the channel reach more viewers just like you. But make sure to also leave a comment as well and let me know what you thought of the episode, because I am interested to hear. But let's talk about He Who Comes with the Dawn. As I mentioned, one of the big questions with this season was whether or not they were going to stick the landing. Season 1, while it wasn't the best of the seasons, didn't really get crazy criticism until the COVID-impacted season finale aired. That one got a lot of heat. Season 2, while certainly better received than Season 1's finale, was still divisive in some ways due to some choices for the adaptation. So I think, at least in my point of view, how the other seasons ended is important in how I view this season finale, which by and large has been the best season of the show so far by a significant margin. So the question comes back up. Did He Who Comes with the Dawn stick the landing? And I'll say, for the most part, I think it really did. I was very satisfied with the ending, even if there were some things I wish we got that we didn't. I have a great taste in my mouth for the show after Season 3, and even more than ever, I'm hoping that Amazon and Sony Pictures Television greenlight the show for Season 4. But let's talk about why I feel that way. And we'll start with some of the things I loved in the episode. And we'll start with the Tanchico plotline, which has been my favorite of the season. I think that we've had some of the best chemistry between the characters there, and a new, interesting locale for the story to explore. I think that's great. The confrontations in the Panarch's palace were satisfying, they were fun, and having Tom Maryland back in the show was just great. And seeing his interactions with Elaine in the episode and their duo fight in the Panarch's palace, that was a lot of fun. I love the hinting at more of a backstory with Tom and Camelin in Elaine's youth. And it's the same plot from the books, but there's still obviously much more the show is going to explore with Tom if they get a chance in the future seasons. I am really hoping that if Wheel of Time does get a 4th season and beyond, that they bring back Tom as a regular for the show rather than just being an every other season type thing. Moghedien continues to be terrifying and perfect, despite being quite different from her book counterpart. Leia Costa's performance has been so eclectic, both portraying an extremely powerful channeler, but also a crazy person who's unpredictable and sadistic. We'll talk more about the lack of a major showdown that many expected in a moment, but I think the setup is obviously there for future seasons if we get them, and having Moghedien play a major role in the story going forward. Another thing I love to see is something that many people didn't think that we would get, and that is, of course, the Eowyn and the Eelfinn, and specifically getting to see one of the Eelfinn on screen. With the preseason chatter being about how it didn't look like Mat was going to go to the waste with Rand, and what that might mean for his storyline, there was a worry that we would not see Mat go through the doorframe, and that he wouldn't quite get his battle memories or the items of power that he carries around for the rest of the series. Well, it appears those worries were completely unfounded, as not only does Mat go through the doorway, but it also really had the creepy, weird feeling that I expected for the Land of the Finns. I really liked that. I mean, I'm going to discuss this more in my breakdown video, but I thought that this was just really well done overall. I am curious how non-readers react to it, and if they understand what they're seeing. Although it's not super clear in the books either. If you are a non-reader, let me know in the comments what you thought of Mat's time in the doorway and his time with the Eelfinn. What did you think of that? Did it make sense? I'm curious what your thoughts are. But for those that missed it, Mat clearly had the Foxhead medallion around his neck when he came out of the doorway, which we're going to learn more about on the show, I'm sure. But the Ashen Darai was also there, which is Mat's weapon that he uses in the books. He was hanging from it as it was stabbed into the doorway when he exited. I'm also assuming that we're going to see the gaps in Mat's memories filled with memories of battles similar to the books, but we'll see how they do that. Let's also talk about Nynaeve. Nynaeve has had sort of a boring season so far. She was one of the stars of Season 1 and a good part of Season 2. This season, she seems to just have been reduced to a support role in the show. This episode finally brought her back into the fold with something that I think was done at the right time. Yes, Nynaeve breaking her block does not happen for quite a bit longer in the books, but I don't think that they could continue that part of her story in the show for much longer. I think it was a great decision to have her break the block now, and to do it with memories of her daughter, I thought that was powerful. Nynaeve is my favorite character from the books, so of course I'm going to stand any good moment we get from her, and I loved seeing her block finally broken and her real power showing to everybody. I think if they had kept this going, it would have just gotten old and would have made Nynaeve even more of a boring character. So I'm glad they ended that now. But let's move to the White Tower, and I think the big surprise for the episode. I think for anybody who read the books, we knew that the Tower coup and Swan being deposed was coming. The introduction of Alida was writing on the wall for that, and it was just a matter of time. What I think I loved is how this was done on the show with the craftiness used by Alida to make it happen. Let's think about this. She maneuvered to have the head of the Red Aja and a sitter take off to pursue Mazrim Taim. Then she had herself named a sitter. Then she had Red Sisters sent out of the tower to pull Swan's allies away from the hall. And then she made the coup happen very quickly. That's craftiness, and I loved seeing it. It both seems to be shady as fuck and technically legal under Tower law, which is exactly the type of thing that would start a division in the White Tower. I just think this was done really, really well. I'll also say Alida feels exactly like a villain who you aren't sure if she's evil or not, just like the books. I'm looking forward to seeing more of Shohreh Aghdashloo as Alida if we can. I love her. So let's move to the Waste. I think Rand and the Shido and Alkir Dal, that was great. This was almost straight from the books. It was excellently portrayed, even down to Rand making it rain in the Waste. I even really enjoyed the crazy look on Rand's face as he channels at the end, teasing some things that might be coming in the future for him. I also thought the Shido, specifically Savannah, were great for the limited time we got them. I love the costuming there, and she is almost exactly what I pictured from Savannah. Lanfear also finally going crazy again is exactly what I wanted to see. In one respect, I love that they've humanized her in the series, and we've kind of had this like begrudging respect for her, and you know, she seems like she might be morally gray, but I'm also happy she's still batshit crazy and possessive of Rand. So I really liked seeing her going nuts again. So what didn't I like from this episode? Well, first of all, I think this will always be said with an adaptation of a series this long, and that's the fact that we're only getting 8 episodes a season. I just think there's not enough time to tell the story perfectly. This episode had a ton happening in it, all of which would have benefited from having more time. An example was the Samael plotline. Samael's time on the show was just cut short. All right. But this did just feel entirely too rushed for me. We had him introduced as a Forsaken in episode 3. We got to see him strangely attack in episode 6. And then in episode 8, Moiraine talks to him once and Moghedien kills him. Like, what was the purpose of that? I feel like we just needed longer. We needed more interactions with Rand. We needed more setup for why he was sent, how he could be coerced to help Rand, and maybe even Lanfear helping Moiraine make him help Rand. Like, unless they're doing something else, I would have liked to have seen that plotline at least stretch into next season and let it live a little bit. I'd say this episode had a few moments where they went back to the same thing a bit too much. For example, Moiraine and Lanfear have been too much of a focus, I think. The confrontation was simultaneously cool to watch, but also anticlimactic as they've hyped us up that Moiraine was going to die. This is like the 7,000th time they've gone against each other. It was really cool to see the true power wielded in battle, but I think we need some resolution around their fight or plotline or whatever. I think we need some resolution there soon. But again, we also find that Aes Sedai have the ability to survive being stabbed by things that would have killed a mere mortal. First Alanna, now Moiraine. I'd say that we've got a bit too much of the stab them and make them look like they're dead and have them come back. They're going to that well a bit too much. One other thing I'll say I did not love about the episode, and that is Swan's death. On one hand, I understand why this happened. Sophie Akinato is a famous actress. They're going to have to cut some future plot lines to make this series fit in fewer seasons. There's an argument to be made in the books even that Swan could have died at her deposing as well. But there are quite a few people, myself included, who really enjoy Swan's arc throughout the books and what happens after she stops being Amyrlin. While I understand why they did it, it doesn't mean that I have to love it. The last thing I want to mention, though, is I think something that just didn't happen. And I think it was something that a lot of people were expecting, including myself. And that was Nynaeve and Moghedien's confrontation. They set it up. They did the compulsion scene. It seemed like we might get it because it happens in the Panarch's palace, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen this season, obviously. So does that mean we're never going to get it? I don't think so. I think that what they're doing is they are saving that for later. They're letting Moghedien be a character and let Nynaeve grow a bit more before she defeats a Forsaken. But we did not get it. I would have liked to have seen it, but I also understand the need for that to be in a later season. So overall, this was a really good ending to a very good season. I wish we had more time, but I feel like I'd be saying that even if they gave us 15 episodes per season. The story is just that rich, and there is that much to cover that things are going to be cut, and inevitably, I am not going to agree with every decision they make. What matters is it a good show? And is it a show that non-readers will watch as well as readers? And with this episode and season 3 as a whole, I think they did that. This was not my favorite episode of the season, but it was a really good one. For a score, I'm going to give episode 8, He Who Comes with the Dawn. an 8.5 out of 10. What did you think of episode 8? Let me know in the comments of the video. As always, remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like Wheel of Time content. I'll have even more content coming now that the season is over as well. Huge thank you to my patrons for their support. You can become one by checking out the link in the description of the video. And if you like this video, you will probably like one of these here as well. Thank you for watching, and until the next time, peace out.